everything cut from Warlords or Draenor. My question is though, if we do end up getting actual Warlords or Draenor Classic, will we get a bunch of these things that they cut off? Everything cut from Warlords.
You're going to end up defending Karabor and saving it from the Iron Horde, and that's going to be your main city. Karabor is what you may have known as Black Temple in Outland. So that's actually going to be your city as the Alliance for the expansion.
Karabor was never actually used as the Alliance faction hub.
Ooh.
It was used in a scenario at the end of the Shadowmoon Valley questline, and then again for a part of the Legendary Ring quest chain, and that's about it.
For the Horde, you are going to you're going to travel to Frostfire Ridge, and in Frostfire Ridge, you're going to help the Frostwolves fight against the ogres that are there, and you're going to liberate the Ogre Citadel. There's the Blades Citadel there called the Bladespire Citadel, and that's going to be your city.
You do end up doing this in the Frostfire Ridge quest chains, and pretty early on too, but you don't ever use Bladespire as a faction hub, even though it seems to be completely set up for it, and is way bigger than it needs to be for a small quest chain.
Oh yeah, so in the corner, you've got at the very bottom left down there, that's a mysterious ogre continent.
The panel goes on to explain the lore behind the continent.
So it's like a mysterious ogre continent that just never used. And what about the place at the top right where Netherstorm was in Outland? That's just never used as well.
Suffice to say, we never went there, and there was no indications in any of Warlords of Draenor that we would, other than some talk and interviews saying that they would like to go there someday, maybe.
Oh, well, we've got Feralon. That's TBD. You guys will explore that later on. So what you knew as Netherstorm at this time was Farallon, and you'll be adventuring there in a patch, but it's not there for the launch of Warlords of Draenor.
Farahlon was never actually added in a future patch.
Yeah,
they even removed the island from the UI map in-game, but not the physical maps in-game. Farallon seems to have been cut late in development, as before patch 6.1, you could actually go to the removed island of Farallon in-game, if you had a way to get past the fatigue zone without dying. And the fatigue zone in the area where Feralon was supposed to be is still budgeted in the map, as you can go for a very long time over the sea before you hit the fatigue zone. In the PTR for patch 6.2, they had a shipyard mission which had the flavor text of going into Feralon in order to grab the Pearl of Feralon, which was supposed to be used in order to craft a legendary ring, which was scrapped in the PTR process, and instead you just did other things to craft the ring.
A little anecdote on that, actually, is that we originally concepted this zone as a purple desert.
Yep, a purple desert that they never
wasn't really working for us.
Turned out everyone that saw it kept saying, "Why is that snow purple?"
And why are the frost wolves in a purple desert?
Fine, it's snow already.
Like this, the music and the vibes makes me kind of sad, right? To see all these epic things that they could have been in VOD that just never got added. It's the same thing when you hear about all those epic things like Vanilla had planned and then never made it, right? It kind of sucks.
Sometimes we're dumb.
Yeah, incredible
Early on in the game, they had planned on Frostfire Ridge being purple for some reason. We're told that it was kind of dumb, and then kind of agreed and changed it to snow.
That's kind of weird.
Speaking of Shattrath, this is a piece of concept art of what it looks like on Draenor. What's really cool about this is you can see it's got the water there. That's the Zangar Sea coming up right against the edge. Zangar Marsh isn't fully there yet, so it's really cool to see this place, but just in a different time.
In an early map, it shows a Shattrath raid in Talador, but during all the panels and interviews at BlizzCon, whenever they bring up Shattrath, they never mention a raid associated to it.
Yeah.
Which means the planned Shattrath raid was scrapped really early in development.
I don't remember exactly, wasn't Shattrath just like kind of like a questing area? I don't remember exactly, but I remember being very disappointed about the whole Shattrath thing whenever it like actually was out. The saddest thing is that you knew halfway into expansion it's gonna be abandoned. Yeah, I remember being very disappointed about Shattrath. Mistu, thank you for the prime. Questing area there and the main building was shut off. Okay.
As during the BlizzCon panels, they were still talking about Feralon as if it was going to come out. Next, let's go over a whole bunch of features that were planned for garrisons that were never implemented.
You're even going to be able to pick which zone you want your base to be in.
No, you're not.
So a bunch of the different zones out there.
No, you're not.
A lot of the zones throughout Draenor support the ability to build a garrison. So if you decide that you want your garrison to be in the hard zone of Gorgrond, that's
I remember specifically being very excited for this. Like knowing, like I was so much looking forward to. Oh man, where do I want to build my base? Like where do I want it to be? Like I'm gonna be so hyped to like customize it, right? But Frostfire Ridge Horde, right? That's it.
You can decide if you want it to be in the idyllic Shadowmoon Valley, then that's what you can decide. You get to pick.
maybe at a later point you've had this garrison in this zone for a few months. You can up and decide to move it to a different place just because you think that's cooler.
In the live version of the game, you were not able to pick which zone you could put your garrison in, and instead only had Frostfire Ridge for Horde or Shadowmoon Valley for Alliance.
This looks cooler.
Same concept with trophies. Maybe you kill a rare mob out in Draenor somewhere, you kill a Chimera or something, and you get to bring back its head and mount it in the town hall in your garrison.
Yeah,
They did allow you to hang up
whale.
archaeology items, but no rare mobs you killed out in the world in the way they described in the clip.
And of course, you could customize them with names. So if you want to name your guy Johnny McCool, you can name him Johnny McCool, and that's what he'll be like in the game. Anyone that comes to your garrison will see that guy named that.
Yeah.
You gave him a name, you'll see that name when he's walking around in there. We really want it to feel like it's your place.
In the live version of the game, you could not rename any of your followers.
Bloop.
In fact, you couldn't really name anything in your garrison at all,
It's still
except
kind of soulless, the whole garrison thing, for me at least.
for your battle pets that could follow you around if you had a tier 3
do-
menagerie.
You can see this armory has 3 specializations. Currently, we're thinking we'll let you change the specialization probably once each day. We might put a cost on it to change the specialization. We don't want you swapping it all the time, but we definitely want to give you the option to change it without too much trouble.
Okay.
It's a really cool reward for getting rank 3 of a building. Not only do you get the new art, the better bonus, but you get this piece of customization that you can do to it. And those vary as well. Those can be things that would, maybe the infirmary gives you the option to resurrect out in the world like once per day. You know, someone from your infirmary shows up and reses you. Or maybe it's something specifically for your followers so they can be stronger on a mission. It's just another way that you can customize this place and make it feel like your own.
Blizzard had
Place
plans
where
for
you want
tier
it to
3
be.
buildings to have a customizable bonus you could change out, kind of like a talent in a talent tree. Instead,
Yeah.
all 3 tier bonuses were just fixed.
It just looks like a mobile game. Like this whole vibe reminds me of like a mobile game, kind of. It really does, dude. Like you have your little things, then it takes an hour to upgrade. You can increase the upgrade cost and whatever the heck. It's just so silly. Yeah, everything felt very empty because of the garrisons too. It played like it too. It really did. And then like the missions with the characters and stuff like that. Yeah, class halls were more cool definitely than garrisons, obviously. I didn't get to experience class halls very, very in-depth, but in the very end of Legion I did a little bit, right? Anyone else have a problem subbing? I tried 3 times. No, Twitch literally doesn't want my money. I do not know about that one, Clemidius.
And you could not change what a building did at all.
People
Mission-
did want player housing. Yeah, but I don't really feel like the way garrisons turned out, it didn't feel like player housing, man. It just felt like, oh, you had like a base you could upgrade like for some stuff and like, you know, send out some mobile game stuff. It didn't feel like player housing in the same way, I feel like, you know?
This can be a number of different activities. Here's an example of a few, how it would work in game. You can send them on a quest. You can do a scenario. You can obviously run a dungeon, and even you can run raids. Raids we're thinking are going to take multiple days to run, but it's really that cool, epic feeling that these followers you find can do awesome, cool things. They're not just hanging out. You can send them out to actually fight for you.
This whole thing was just, I don't know. Wow, yeah, it was so cool, dude. It was so cool, dude.
The original idea for sending followers out on missions was kind of treat them like real players that you would send out to do real player activities.
Yeah.
Instead, all of the missions were exactly the same. And the only difference to them was how long they
And
took.
there was just an add-on. You had an add-on that auto-filled with the best possible units, and you just click, 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 and then that's it.
And
You know?
how hard they were to counter with their incredibly simple rock, paper, scissors system.
Yeah.
90% of the time you didn't even know what the flavor of the mission was.
Nope.
Just that you needed to send a couple of followers on it in order to get the rewards.
That's it.
You got to be able to pick where this stuff goes. So maybe you want to put your mage tower up on the hill in your garrison. Maybe you want to put your mage tower up near the front gate because you think that looks cooler.
No.
We're going to let you do that. You're going to get to pick where you want to put the buildings.
No, you're not, dude. You put this building there because that's where the only place that it can be put. Oh my lord, man.
This variety is really what gives us that customization we're looking for.
This
Yeah.
statement makes it seem like you could put your buildings literally wherever you wanted.
It did not, dude. It sounded so awesome. It did sound cool when they explained it, but like, I don't know, man. They had lore behind some of those missions. Yeah, but like nobody cared, right? Because it's such an insignificant thing. It sounded like shit. It turned out a lot more shit than it sounded. You know, so you can take that as you wish.
Really, you could just choose one of 2 plots at incredibly fixed locations.
Medium, small, and large.
Which
yeah.
were so minorly customizable that it's almost laughable to think of that as what was stated in the clip.
Cleave's been an interesting stat. We played with it a little bit on the trinkets in the latest raid tier, and we don't think it's necessarily fun to be like, I'm going to put on my cleave set, I'm going to take off my cleave set. But if you get it as a bonus on some of your items, hey, that could be pretty cool. You'll do a little bit
was supposed to be a thing. You can get like a cleave stat?
of extra AE cleaving sometimes.
When they announced the new tertiary stats for Warlords of Draenor,
What?
alongside an early version of Leech, Speed, Avoidance, and Indestructible, they also had Cleave
Interesting.
as one of those extra stats you can get on your gear, which are also known as a minor attribute.
I didn't know this.
Minor attributes have an incredibly low chance to proc on your gear, and generally are just bonuses that don't contribute too much to DPS. The Cleave stat seems like it was a pure DPS increase though, similar to Sockets, which is probably why they never added in the Cleave stat.
Do you know what the last boss is in Warlords of Draenor?
Oh,
Or can you tell us, please?
Gromash Hellscream.
Gromash Hellscreen was not the final boss of Warlords of Draenor. It was instead Archimonde, which Gromash Hellscream does help you defeat Archimonde in the final battle.
so it's the exact opposite, basically. He helps you instead, right? VoD just had weird
According
vibes
to
for
an
me.
early map, the Chronos Spire was meant to be the entrance point into Draenor, where it was speculated you would then stop the Iron Horde from finishing building the Dark Portal. The Chronos Spire seems to have been scrapped early in development, as it didn't actually appear in any alpha or beta files
remember
at
this.
all, unlike Feralon. In lore, at the end of the War Crimes book, Kairos helps Garrosh escape trial by using a giant hourglass. So it makes sense that a giant hourglass would be the central hub in order to get into Draenor. However, they moved the location of where Kairos brought Garrosh to a spot in Negran, where there is no hourglasses at all nearby, and just the corpse of Kairos himself.
Okay.
There's an
Yeah, I don't know about the raids too much. I quit super early in VoD. I lost interest pretty early in VoD, personally. After I did my raiding and everything, that all my friends quit, so I just kind of stopped, right? There's supposed to be a Gorehowl legendary. Really?
item which was added to the game files.
I got paid by my
called
friends,
6.0
yeah.
weapon, axe, two-handed Gorehowl remake Grom Hellscream only,
This would've
which
been
has
pretty
the model
sick.
of a high-quality Gorehowl. There is speculation this was added to the game to be a legendary item because of this line of dialogue from an interview at Gamescom. Interview with colleagues, you said there could be another legendary apart from the ring type? What legendaries there could be then? We could imagine a legendary Gorehowl. That would be
could
possible. Terran Gore also has a very nice staff. Yeah, that's a pretty cool staff. So this is also possible. We will see. If we see the imaginary
God.
Gorehowl, would it be just for Death Knights, Warriors, Paladins? Fictional warriors, of course. Probably to anyone who could carry a two-handed axe.
You need to be careful about what you say in those kind of interviews and stuff like that, because people take it literally, right? And they get excited about it and stuff like that, man. It's kind of sketch, dude. The Gorehowl is in that Gorehowl is in the new dungeon, but yeah, not as a legendary though, right?
So there was never any data mine legendary weapon, just this trash item, which I guess could be counted as cut
What are you on
content
about?
based on this interview.
It's not about.
The Broken Horn Village
I do lots of variety, thank you very much.
is an abandoned village located in Gorgon which has nothing associated to it, but is friendly to Horde players and hostile to Alliance players.
Yeah.
It's fully stocked with named NPCs and houses, and flies the banner of the Laughing Skull Clan, which is a
remember this
reputation
place,
that Horde
yeah.
players can grind out with a level 2 trading post. It's speculated this was planned to be a quest hub or reputation center. The village itself is in the game, it's just not associated to anything, and there's no reason to ever go there.
Yeah, I remember
During the
this.
beta, Kargrath Bladefist, the first boss in Highmaul, originally survived the encounter at 1 health and ran away, leaving his hook behind to be looted. During the live version of the game, he just dies, and you can loot his body like normal.
What?
This was probably changed when they changed their mind on how they were going to finish off the storyline. During a blog
have a-
post on a
okay.
Blizzard French site, Blizzard announced class accessories, which would have no gameplay effect and just be something cool you can unlock and upgrade to get cooler appearances.
Okay,
It
that's
was
kinda
quickly
cool.
taken down and no mention of it was ever talked about again. There was some speculation that Zangomarsh was going to be its own zone, but even alpha footage shows that it was always underwater. So if that was the case, it was going to be a purely underwater zone like Vashir.
And I'm not gonna lie, guys, Vashir is one of the cooler zones that Cataclysm has to offer, man. This could have been sick, in my opinion. I actually think this could have been pretty sick, in my opinion. It's shit. I love Vashir, man. I think the leveling experience in Vashir back in the day was incredibly fun. And I loved it. It was so different than anything else. And I loved it.
Quit Cataclysm though.
Yeah, I quit a few months into Cataclysm. That doesn't make Vashir bad.
The zone even had its own soundtrack, and it has lots of work
It
put
is.
into it. but was only ever actually involved in like 1 or 2 quests in the live version of the game. There was also art for a fungal world boss whale, which was never added, probably because they abandoned whatever ideas they had for the underwater zone. In the game files, they added 4 new Battleground files called Small Battleground A, B, C, and D. Small Battleground A was just a whole bunch of assets taken from Bladespire Citadel, the scrapped Horde capital, assets from the battle.
Vashir is a weird hill to die on, terrible zone. Well, it's not a hill, it's a water zone. It's a great zone.
And some assets from Wintergrass, and doesn't really seem to have any cohesion on how it was supposed to be played. Small Battleground B is just
Stop one in the chat if you love Vashir.
Winter version for Rothi Basin, which was eventually released in Legion. Small Battleground C is just an empty plot of land. And Small Battleground D was also an empty plot of land, which was changed to a copy of Deepwind Gorge during patch 6.2 in Warlords of Draenor. During the promotional materials titled Ages of War Awaits, there's a segment that says they were going to do new normal and heroic scenarios, which were 3-man mini-dungeons added in Mist of Pandaria, which haven't really been used since Mist of Pandaria. They had obviously planned on continuing the feature, but then scrapped it for whatever reason, and now only use it for solo quests. In alpha footage of Gorgon, you can see trains and train tracks at various points in the zone. These were eventually removed, and the only reference to them is in a dungeon, which confusingly has a fight on a train going through Gorgon, which doesn't actually exist in the open world version of Gorgon.
That's actually kind of weird. I think it would have been kind of cool with those train tracks and stuff like that going through it. I remember the Goblin Zone in Cataclysm as well had those train tracks and stuff like that. It's pretty cool.
This is a case of scrapped content directly influencing a dungeon that was probably too far along in development to completely change, so they just left it in anyway without really explaining it. In early development, there was a quest line which had you help Tess Greymane find some herbs that would help stop the degradation of the Worgen curse. This was eventually scrapped and replaced with a Fiona storyline to get a plant in order to heal a sick dwarf instead. The likely reason this was changed was because the Tess Greymane plot point brings up actual major lore consequences, and they probably didn't intend to tackle such a large issue in a minor quest.
Well, rip.
In some early builds in the alpha, there were dialogues data mined involving both Murad and Yrel, which strongly hinted they were going to be in a relationship, as I'll be showing them on screen.
Okay, I don't really follow the Draenor lore too much, so I'm not really too certain on this one.
This was eventually changed at some point, probably when they rewrote the storyline for Talador, and instead Murad dies in one of the cinematics. There were a couple of islands included in the early versions of the map, in addition to Farahlon and the Ogre Continent, which were never given any mentions about what they might be, and were removed from the map alongside Feralon.
Oh yeah, so like all those zones we just didn't get. I enjoyed the leveling. The leveling in Warlords of Draenor was really good, in my opinion. I still quit a month into the expansion, but the leveling was still good in the expansion that I quit. Just like Vashir was good.
Although the Ogre Continent still stays on the map, funny enough, even to this day. Medivh had a short cameo
Keep coping, bro. Alright, sis.
Talking to Gul'dan as a shadowy figure during the early stages of WoD. However, it was removed by launch. Having Medivh in the picture would open up alternative Azeroth storylines, so it was most likely removed to not have to deal with those major lore implications.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Similar to why they removed the Feral Worgen storyline.
And last but not least, I want to talk a little bit about this thing that we're calling the Trial of the Gladiator. Well, Trial of the Gladiator is the arena ladder. So one of the problems that we have is that it's very difficult to find people of your caliber, if you're a really high-end competitive player, to play with at the same time. And so really the Trial of the Gladiator is taking the concept of the arena ladder that we have right now and really focusing it to concentrate the queues at certain periods of time during the week. So that you really get a lot of people in the queues at the same time. In addition, one of the really exciting things here is that we get to use what we call tournament rules. So this is a lot like the way the arena server works, right? So when you go to the arena server, it's not a competition about gear. Anybody can go to the Trial of the Gladiator.
Oh, so it was basically like high-end arena in a certain time frame, but with like biz gear. So it's not at all about, it's purely skill. Wait, that's actually kind of dope though.
Use the vendors and put on the gear that they want to use and hop right into the Trial of the Gladiator.
For the people that would enjoy that.
It is purely about the skill.
Trial of the Gladiator was supposed to be a new arena mode, which would fix a lot of the problems in arena, by putting everyone on an even gear playing field, and also forcing players to queue at the same times in order to avoid match fixing. This was eventually cut, and Blizzard even gave an update on it, stating that the reason they cut it was because they didn't want to punish people who weren't able to play at the preset times for the Trial of the Gladiator,
I think this is kind of cool, honestly, man. Like for the Henhouse. Yeah, listen, maybe a lot of you guys probably don't have never played this, but there used to be a private server for vanilla WoW PvP called Henhouse. And that server was strictly a PvP server. You logged in, you could get full best in slot gear, full consumables, everything, and you could just practice duels. You could do rated BG. I don't know if there was rated, but there was BGs, and I think there was even arenas. But maybe I remember wrong, but that was great, and that was super fun. Having something like that in WoW could be kind of cool in like a tournament style, right? And especially for the people that really like the competitive stuff, but don't want to like sit and grind the big MMO like that, right? Server and private servers are the best. Having duels with the CD resets is so huge. Yeah, after every single duel, your CDs will reset. It was so cool.
So they just scrapped the whole thing and reintroduced the skirmish system instead.
All right, well, the video ends like abruptly right after here. It's actually insane how much they cut out, though. And how much of this stuff actually seems to be pretty cool and probably could have made the expansion a lot more enjoyable in many ways. And this kind of just goes to show, this probably happens like in all the expansions ever. We just don't know about all the stuff that gets cut out, right? Hours upon hours of content. Yeah, exactly, man. I mean, even Vanilla, I mentioned this in the beginning as well. Like, Vanilla had so much potential as well. I mean, Vanilla is a great game. It is fantastic, but they had so much more planned than what we actually got. Like, Outland was supposed to be in Vanilla, so was Karasan and a bunch of other things as well. It is absolutely insane how big of a project that was too, but very, very, very interesting, guys. So whenever classic VoD comes out in a few years, maybe we'll see a few of these things actually implemented, right?